Fill to Capacity, where heart, grit, and irreverent humor collide. A podcast for people too stubborn to quit and too creative not to make a difference. Hi, I'm Pat Benincasa, and welcome back to Fill to Capacity, episode number 105, Lens, Light, and the Edge of Wild. Today's guest is someone who doesn't just take photos, she creates moments that really stay with you. Brittany Colt is a photographer, guide, and educator based in California's Eastern Sierra. Her images are striking and beautiful, but they carry something deeper, a sense of presence, truth, and a quiet strength. She's the force behind the Flying Dress Experience, where women step into wild landscapes, wear flowing dresses, and embody their strength in ways they never imagined. These portraits are exquisite, but it's the transformation behind them that leaves a mark. Brittany went from shooting weddings in Portland to working at the Ansel Adams Gallery in Yosemite. You may know the name Ansel Adams. He was a legendary American photographer who lived from 1902 to 1984. He is best known for his black and white images of the American West, especially Yosemite. His photos weren't just beautiful. They were bold, intentional, and technically masterful. He helped turn photography into fine art and used his work to advocate for wilderness conservation. To this day, his photographs challenge us to see nature not as background, but as belonging. Brittany has built a life shaped by light, intuition, and the raw beauty of the natural world. Born blind in one eye, she sees with a clarity most of us are still chasing, and her images reflect that. So listeners, get ready. This is a conversation about resilience, reinvention, and what it means to really see the world and yourself. Well, welcome, Brittany. So nice to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me here, Pat. I really appreciate it.
Brittany, your story begins with a Kodak 110 camera and a wide-angle view that changed your life. What did that first moment of seeing do to your sense of self?
Yeah, so I remember I was on a family vacation and my parents just gave me that camera. It was one of their old cameras. It had more of like a panoramic view. And when I saw that panoramic view for the first time, I was like, wow, is this what I've been missing? And so cameras in a way showed me what it was like to look through two eyes. That was very special.
So you were born blind in one eye, yet
Mhm.
your work is all about vision and perspective. How has that shaped not just your art, but how you move through the world?
So since I was born blind in one eye, I don't know what it's like to look through two eyes. Ever since I was a kid, I was a creative. I was drawing, painting, crafting, whatever I could get my hands on. And I think that just came naturally with my disability. Since I was born blind, my left brainstem is slower. So for like the analytical side of my brain, like people use that side for math, let's just say. And I was terrible at math growing up, but the creative side just came naturally, and that's what I clung on to. And that I feel like, is a blessing in disguise because I can't imagine my life being any different.
I want to start with something that really grabbed me, the Flying Dress Experience.
Mhm.
The images are striking, but I get the sense there's more going on. For folks who don't know what it is, can you walk us through that?
So the flying dress experience was born out of a way that I wanted to connect with women. And I love working with women. So basically, the flying dress is when a woman gets in this beautiful, long, silky dress. And then I have my assistant come and fly the dress up. And then I'm just at a really fast shutter speed capturing the action of the dress flying up. It's really popular in Greece and Dubai and a lot of the vacation areas, it has become really popular there. So people will most likely go get their photos taken there. And here in the US, it hasn't really taken off yet, but I want to do that and I want to work with women and I want to empower them. And so I decided to start offering this experience a couple years ago.
And does that mean like they're climbing these cliffs and you put them in rocky terrain?
Okay, so there's different levels. It's funny that you asked that. I love to being out in nature. Nature is definitely healing for me. It is my church. It is my place where I love to go and connect with the earth. And so I was like, well, what better experience is to take a woman, and because it is very vulnerable being in front of the camera. Let's just say I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm so nervous and stuff, but then they get out in nature and they're relaxed. It's a different change. I just wanted to get people out in nature and give them this experience, also making them feel beautiful and actually seeing themselves the way everyone else sees them. We look at ourselves completely differently. We look in the mirror and we're like, I don't really like this
Yeah.
wrinkle or whatever. But how a photographer sees you is completely different. So
Yeah.
that was the whole idea, was empowering women and offering something that could last for a lifetime, really. I mean, we're only in our bodies for how long? And like a lot of women like to do it during like, oh, my 40th birthday, or I'm celebrating being cancer free. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stories that came along with this project that I didn't even know about. I didn't even think about when I started offering this, and realize how impactful it is on women and how we can be empowered just by getting in a beautiful dress and actually just honoring ourselves
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
our stories.
On your website, as I was looking at those images, it was so much more than fabric or landscape. It seemed like you were photographing transformation.
Mhm.
I mean, that really resonated in the images. And it must be something to witness women reclaiming their power out there.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Like, normally, the first 10 minutes will start out a little nervous, but then I'm just very encouraging. Me and my partner, my assistant, will try to just create this very comfortable, relaxed atmosphere. Like, there's no tension. We're just out in nature, having fun, laughing, having a good time. And then going back to your question about the rock climbing, I don't actually offer that type of photo shoots. That's just my passion, to get women on side of cliffs and looking really rad on the side of a cliff in a harness with a flying dress. That's just me and my passion projects. If a woman just wants to go out in nature, be on a dome top, or we don't even have to climb anywhere. There's different levels of it. And I usually ask, like, what do you want your experience to be like? And someone like wants more of adventure, while others want to be staying close to the car and just walking 5 minutes out to location.
What is a dome top?
So in Yosemite, we have granite domes, just a dome that's just made of complete granite, which is really beautiful. Yeah.
You once said chasing light helps reveal a subject's spirit. What does your relationship with light teach you about timing, trust, and intuition?
Oh, that's such a good question. When I go out and photograph, sometimes I'm not even thinking about the subject matter per se. I'm just looking at the light, because the light will lead me to my subject. And when I find the beautiful light hitting the subject, that is when I can really create art and really bring out the best in my subject, whether it's a tree or it's a person. It's the same thing. Whatever I'm photographing, the light always will dictate where I shoot.
And it's
Mm.
interesting, I'm a visual artist, and the idea of painting light and painting space is very, very different than capturing it through a lens because it changes so fast in the atmosphere.
Yeah, that is one of the challenges of being a photographer. I respect all the painters and other artists who works in different mediums, but we are just dealt with what we're faced with. We'll go out and probably fail most of the time, especially for landscape photography. Portrait photography, we can put lights up and put modifiers and work with the light. But for landscapes, it's like even this whole week I've been going out because we're getting storm after storm and it hasn't been lining up. And I'm like, I'm not getting anything. But that's okay because I'm still getting out in nature. I'm still enjoying myself. And that is just the challenge of being a photographer.
Yeah.
We're just faced with the conditions we're faced with. And sometimes it works out and it's complete magic. And other times, most of the time, 95% of the time, we're just like, well, I didn't get anything tonight. So pack up and leave.
I imagine you have to be quick on your feet in the sense that if you turn around and you see a condition, an atmospheric condition, you got to move fast. Are you quick like that by nature, or have you had to train yourself?
Yeah, so that came in a few different steps. So no, I'm not quick with tech by nature just because my left side of my brain, is a little bit slower. So tech is really hard for me. But the way I trained myself to be good was practice. Practice, 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 putting myself in different lighting situations, just going out and then photographing weddings. And weddings, you got to be really fast because you got to capture those moments. So weddings really helped me think really fast on my feet and make lighting decisions and all the decisions I needed to make. Photographing someone walking down the aisle, these moments, you can't repeat those. It's not like a flying dress photo session where I can just keep having the person do the same pose over and over until we get the perfect flow of the fabric. I always encourage new students to just practice with their camera around their house. I mean, that's the best advice I could give to any new photographer because you'll be in those situations, even if you're not photographing weddings, like you're saying, Pat, the light comes in and leaves in a few seconds. Some of my best shots was because of that. That's just happening. I only had one shot and that one moment, just that split second moment. So yeah, it's very important to be really educated and really fast with the settings on the camera.
I'd like to shift gears for a moment. After your divorce, you packed your life into a Kia and headed towards a dream. What did that leap of faith teach you about starting over and choosing yourself?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Yeah, my divorce. I was at crossroads, really. I was like, either because me and my ex-husband, we had a wedding photography business together. And when our divorce occurred, I lost everything. I didn't even have a camera. I just had to take money on my retirement and be like, all right, I need a camera. But I was literally at crossroads. I was just like, I can either go back to school, do a different career, or I can continue following my dreams. And the Ansel Adams Gallery job came into, how should I say this? It kind of landed in my lap. So the Ansel Adams Gallery job landed in my lap. It was brought to my attention, and I didn't even know if I wanted to apply or not. Because, I was going through such a traumatizing time. And I'm like, man, if I move away, I'm moving away from my support system, my whole family. But I followed my gut. I followed my intuition. I followed my heart. And I went for it. I got rid of all I could get rid of. And then, just brought whatever I could pack in my little Kia Spectra. And I drove up there. I didn't know what to expect either. I haven't even been to Yosemite before this. I didn't even want to look at pictures of Yosemite. I did a little research about Ansel Adams. Surprise enough, I didn't even know much about him. After 3 interviews later, they kind of put you through the ringer there. I landed the job. Eventually worked my way up to education coordinator, where I was coordinating the whole photography department for the Ansel Adams Gallery. But following my heart and following my intuition and my gut, that will never lead you wrong. Even when creating art, I'm just following my intuition and my gut, and it never leads you wrong. And even in life, I look back and I'm like, I'm so happy I don't live in Portland anymore. I'm really happy where I'm at here in the Sierra. I love being close to the mountains, being close to epic scenery. It's a gift to me.
I think any of us who have gone through divorce know exactly what you're talking about. And I can remember that crossroad. I had been married for 17 years, and that was a crossroad.
Yeah.
And there's a part that is so scary, like I'm walking to nothing. But the fact is, it's not walking towards nothing. It's walking to a whole new chapter
Mhm.
based on choosing yourself.
Yeah, it's like you're walking towards
Oh,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But at the time, it's so
Yeah.
scary. But you
It's
just
so
know
scary.
you have to do it. And
Mhm.
I can say, as you're saying, it was the best thing I ever did.
It's funny how we can lose ourselves through relationship too, you
It
know? Like,
is.
it's interesting when I got divorced, I was like, "Wow, like, I don't even know who I am anymore."
I agree. I don't know what it is about relationship or the routine of everydayness. I don't know how it happened for me, but I did get lost in there. And
Mhm.
I have to tell you, after the divorce and everything, I got a little house and I remember the papers were signed. And as I was going into this new little house, I put the key in the lock and I remember hearing the tumblers turn. And it was
Mm.
so loud. It was almost cosmic, like, wow,
Mm.
as if it was turning the key and opening the door to possibility. When Emily Dickinson says, I dwell in possibility, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, like, I had the same experience, like, just driving to Yosemite, like, "Whoa."
Well, yeah, I can imagine that. It brings me to your work with the Ansel Adams Gallery. How did it feel? Here you come out of this situation, you land in this situation of being the gallery. That must have felt like standing in the shadow of a giant. How did that experience sharpen your creative voice?
Yeah, it was kind of a surreal experience walking into that, and, like, in Portland, I was hanging out with portrait photographers, and walking in and hanging out with landscape photographers was completely different. I was kind of like, "Whoa, what is this?" But also being surrounded every day by beautiful imagery, black and whites. I wasn't much of a black and white photographer before, and, well, Ansel Adams made me into one just by looking at his black and whites and studying them every day, and then going out and teaching students and talking about his work and how you look at his photography and you're just like, "Wow, I could be in that scene." They don't look dated to me,
They're
you know? They're
timeless.
they're timeless,
Yeah.
yeah. Black and white, but they're very timeless, and just the quality of them, it's just astounding to get to see originals every single day and then studying the tonality of them and seeing what worked and what wasn't working, and that, I think, really helped me become a really good black and white photographer, and a lot of landscape photographers will say, hands up, like, "Black and white photography is hard," and I wondered why they kept saying that, but I think just with my experience of just studying his work really helped me learn pretty quick how to get even a good photograph and then a good edit and then a good print.
What a process.
Mhm.
And
It's
what
a
an education you gave yourself.
Yeah. I say my 4 years in Yosemite was like my 4 years in photography school, college.
Absolutely. On your website, there's one story that really stood out for me is Sarah Land, a world-class rock
Mm.
climber and brain cancer survivor who wore a flowing red dress while rappelling off a cliff in Yosemite for one of your shoots. And that image is unforgettable. For someone who had faced death and was now quite literally stepping over the edge, it wasn't just a photo, it was like a reckoning. How did
Mhm.
that moment affect you behind the lens?
It was so surreal, it actually gave me goosebumps. Sarah is actually my neighbor, and when I asked her about this project, she was thrilled. She has climbed El Capitan, which is a huge cliff face in Yosemite. If anyone's familiar with Yosemite, you'll know what El Cap is.
Now, for anyone who hasn't been to Yosemite, it is a 3,000 foot tall, 1.5-mile wide wall of granite, the largest granite monolith in the world. It's massive, impossible to ignore, and kind of the unofficial queen of the Yosemite skyline.
And she's done that several several times in her youth. So when she got diagnosed with brain cancer, she had a huge brain tumor, it changed her life. She probably won't ever do the stuff that she was doing before. She will never climb El Cap again. But that moment when we got her in the harness and she rigged the whole thing, she set up the ropes, built her anchor, everything. And when we got her there in the harness, she's like, wow, this is my first time ever doing it since my brain cancer. I don't even know how she made it through because she was dealing with nausea ever since she got diagnosed. She's dealing with nausea. So she was like trying to hold back the whole time, but she's just a champ. She lasted about a half hour out there. I admire her so much.
Yeah,
Like everything that she's been through and the things that she's capable of doing still with her body, it's just amazing. And it was surreal for all of us
I
there.
bet.
And she was so grateful that we gave her that experience. And I printed that photo for her to give to her mom. And she was just, yeah, I feel like that was a turning point for her so that she could prove to herself, yeah, I can actually do stuff, still do some stuff like that, which is so empowering to be part of. And my partner and I had this vision and we're like trying to figure out who would be the perfect person to do it with. I'm like, wait, we live right next to the person who's done El Cap multiple times. So she was the perfect person to bring along. And plus she's very has a beautiful positive energy with life.
Oh, that's
And she's
wonderful.
brought that through the photos. She was just laughing out there and having a good time, even though she was so nauseous. I look up to her in many ways. She's such a
Yeah.
strong, capable woman.
And earlier, when we started this conversation, you mentioned that your mission is to help women embrace parts of themselves that often get dismissed or undervalued in today's culture. When you talk about embracing the feminine, what does that actually mean to you?
You kind of nail it on the head when things in our society is so just built around men. And I feel as women, when I go out into the world, whether I'm photographing or anything I'm doing, I have to dawn on my masculine. And this, I feel these shoots, these fine dress experiences give women a chance just to be completely in their feminine. And to me, that means you don't have to put your guard up. You can drop your guard. You can just be yourself. There's nothing holding you back from it. And let your beautiful femininity shine. And I feel
Yeah.
like when women like get into dresses, it's just a transition of just really embracing their femininity and letting their beauty and their soul shine through. That was basically my mission with the project.
Oh, it's a wonderful mission. And I think you're right. Our culture has long been built around male norms. Your project, in contrast, really honors and celebrates the feminine. Yeah, there are still male dominated fields, but the tide is turning. More women are now entering medical and law schools than men, and across higher education, they're earning more degrees overall. But in the arts, where you'd think there'd be more balance, change has been slow. For many years, it was male dominated.
Mhm.
And for women to make their way into that world, it was tough. In the 80s, I was carried by a gallery. There were 15 of us, 3 were women.
Yeah.
So I know
And
exactly what you're saying. And I'm sure if we talk to any woman in their profession, I think we'd all have war stories.
oh, totally. We
Yes,
could talk about
yes.
this for hours. And unfortunately, that's still happening till this day.
Yeah.
Galleries are very male dominated. And that was a thing working for the Ansel Adams Gallery. I was working with all men and I was like, wow, okay. And I felt like I just had to don on my boots and be masculine. And, when I left the gallery, it's like, I just want to embrace my feminine and offer these photo shoots for women so they can do the same.
I'd like to talk about your working process, your creative process. So now you've chased light through deserts, mountains, forests, always looking for the moment when something true is revealed. When you're out in these wild landscapes, how do they speak to you? What do you What do they ask you to remember?
That's a really good question. To remember what it was like to be outside, the calmness, the peace that comes with it, the joy, the laughter. I have started photographing landscapes so I can take home with me not only the beautiful scenery, but just the feeling behind the photograph. You know, as artists, we want people to look at our art and feel something. We don't just want to say, "Oh, look, a beautiful photograph," you know? We want them to actually feel, and that's what I want to feel when I go home is like look at an image and be like, "Wow. Yeah, that moment, that time in nature is really important for us humans as we become more digitalized and more inside, working in, in cubicles and offices. It's so important for people to be reminded that we all need to get outside and enjoy nature.
It's also about that which is connected to all, the animus mundi, that we are all connected.
Oh,
And
yeah.
to be in nature, it's almost like a coming home, if you will, that there's a feeling of connectedness to it. And I'm from Detroit, I'm urban, but
Mm.
in that natural setting, there's something so profoundly moving, like it's always been.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been there. You know, you go out in nature, you're like, wow, this tree has been here for a very, very, very long time. This rock has been here for centuries. And I love what you said about connectedness because I think in today's world, we feel so disconnected from each other. But then we can go outside, and I have these random experiences with random strangers, and it'd be just another photographer out there or just a random person coming up to me and talking, and we're just connected because we're out there enjoying the same moment. We're not even talking about politics, religion, any of
Yeah.
those divisive stuff. We are just focused on enjoying this beautiful sunset together. And
Yeah.
we had a beautiful moment together, and we're complete strangers and we'll never see each other again. But that's the power of being in nature.
Yeah. I always
It's
think
just,
of nature as being this cosmic permission slip to connect. It's like
yeah.
the cosmic, go ahead, come here, connect, feel connected to each other. It's okay.
Yeah, and it's like when you walk up to someone in nature, they're not like put off. They're like, "Oh yeah," they're agreeing with you and like just ready to chat. But if you walk up to with someone in the grocery store like that, they look at you like, "Why are you talking to me?" I've
Yeah.
had that happen several times because sometimes I can be a little chatty and we're always like, "Huh, like why are you talking to me?" But when I do that with someone in nature, they're so ready to just engage with
Yeah.
you.
Well, as someone who teaches photography, you've seen all kinds of people step behind the camera, some confident, some unsure. What have you learned about creativity and courage from your students? And what would you say to someone they want to make art, but they don't feel like they're good enough to do that?
I would tell them, how are you to expect yourself to be good enough right away when you haven't even gone and like made lots of mistakes? Like making mistakes is where your superpower is because then you can learn from your mistakes. Sometimes get really timid students and they're like, "Oh, I don't wanna make a mistake." I'm like, "Okay, but mistakes are good." In
Yeah,
life, I know in school, we were taught and programmed we need to ace everything and be the best at the best, but mistakes in photography and art is actually a really good thing because then you can learn from them and you can grow. So mistakes are great, in your personal life too because growth is important. But as an artist, I would say just get out there and just make as many mistakes as possible. Who cares? No one else is gonna see them and you're only judging yourself. So at the end of the day, I always encourage my students, like, don't be afraid to make a mistake because that's where you learn the most.
well, it comes back to our initial conversation about when someone goes through a divorce, you're claiming yourself. Well,
Mhm.
mistakes are a way to claim yourself. This was my process. This dead ended, but boy, did I learn a lot from that. I think
Yeah.
we package mistakes not as these, oh, I made a mistake, but more as a facet of ourselves. Yet again, another facet to learn
Mhm.
from. You talked about the time in your life when you left your marriage and closed the business and started completely over and moved to Yosemite. What did nature teach you about grief and healing during that time?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. What nature taught me during that time was to accept it. fully acceptance, because I feel like I was beating myself up, and as you well know, like, going through a divorce, you go through waves, like, of anger and grief, and, it's a roller coaster. The best way I can describe it is like you're grieving a death. It's because you were married, now you're apart. That unit is no longer there. What nature taught me during that time is to just accept how I felt and to be at peace with it. I mean, literally, nature was my therapy during that time. It really helped me overcome a lot and fully accept, like, yeah, I'm divorced now. This is not what I wanted. My life got turned upside down. But now I'm looking back several years later and realizing that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I want to trade my life for the world. Nature really showed me that acceptance is so important, and accepting myself for who I was at the time. It's very healing.
But it also says a lot about you, Brittany, that you were really open to nature, open to that healing that could take place, as opposed to closing the windows, locking the doors, so to speak, and not letting anything in just because of the life changes that you made. And you said you didn't want those things to happen. There's something to be said about your frame of reference, that somehow you allowed yourself to be healed. You allowed nature to be that for you.
Yeah, I mean, how my brain works is usually I look into the future. I'm a big picture person. I'm like, well, if I don't get this figured out now, then I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life. And that basically was my attitude. Even what if I didn't even want to get out of bed on my day off in the morning at 5 o'clock to go photograph the sunrise, I still forced myself to do those things because I needed it. I needed that gratification. And I was probably at the point addicted to it during that healing process, because I needed that. I needed to get out of bed and get myself out of the slump I felt, the depression I was in. I didn't want that in my life. Nature definitely helped me with that, and it motivated me. Photography and nature definitely motivated me to get out of bed and do that. I mean, waking up at 4 or 5 every morning, it's hard. And I still struggle with it, but I never regret it. I have those photographs that I captured, I wouldn't have captured otherwise. Art is healing as well. As artists, I feel we need to encourage the next generation to be artists, because there's a whole generation of people that may not have the resources. My parents were putting craft tools in my hands at a young age, and I grew up watching my dad paint with oils. So I grew up in an artist household, but not a lot of people get that. That's why I love teaching, and I love teaching kids too, because that's in just encouraging the next generation to really go for it. Art is healing, art is therapy. And we have art that was made 100 years ago and transcends till this day. And people can look at this beautiful oil painting someone did 100 years ago and still bring healing to humanity.
And now more than ever, we need the artists, the musicians, the writers, the poets, the photographers. We need them all,
Yes.
especially now when everything is polarized and feels so stressful. That healing aspect of art and the power of art to connect from
Mhm.
one generation to the next. Students would say to me, Pat, what is art? Define art. And I think they were expecting this grandiose explanation. And I just said, when you stand in front of a painting and you don't know where your here is and where there begins, that's art.
Mhm.
And I don't
Yeah.
care what you're looking at.
Yeah.
It could be a beautiful portrait. It could be anything, a photograph, or looking at a sunset. There's a poignancy to it that here and there means nothing. It is a total connection.
Yeah, exactly. It's that connection humans have with art or with music. And it's going to move people in different ways. Some people can look at my photographs and not feel a thing, but that's okay, because the other person will come along and be like, wow, that really moved me. Everyone connects with art differently.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful in a way. We have several amazing artists in this world that
Yes, we do. So you live between intimacy and vastness, portraits and peaks. When you're behind the lens, what are you really hoping to capture before the moment slips away? What is it, Brittany?
The emotion of the scene, how I felt during that, or it could be a completely different emotion. But basically, the light leads me to that emotion because without light, I can't really fully craft a photograph. So the light is my paintbrush. And so I'm hoping to portray and take away emotion from it. So, like what we were going back to, the viewer looks at it and actually has a feeling behind it. It's not just, oh, a beautiful photograph of a sunset, but there's actually intention behind it.
Funny you should say that, because when I discovered your website, I found your work just so deeply moving. Yes, they were landscapes and portraits, but there was something profoundly moving about them. So when you talk about the emotion, as someone who came to your work not knowing that, it's like, whoa, yeah. The word that you use, intentionality, the intention. In terms of your work, your life's work, photography and teaching, if someone were to describe you, oh, Brittany Colt, yeah, Brittany's the one that, what would they say?
I think they could say a lot of things because I think I confuse a lot of people. Honestly, because I am a landscape photographer and a portrait photographer. Like that actually is rare. Landscape photographers have more of a like I'm scared to photograph people. They don't want anything to do with people. While portrait photographers, they just specialize in portraits. So that's a tough question because they could say, well, Brittany Cole, maybe it's the black and whites are what I'm most known for, my black and white photography. The photographs, amazing black and white photography. That's what someone could say, or someone could say also she does amazing portrait work with fine dresses. Yeah, it's a tough question because most photographers are not multifaceted. I mean,
Yep.
Ansel Adams was multifaceted, and that's a lot of people don't even realize he's photographed weddings and portraits, and he had to make a living somehow, and the money is in the portraits, not in the landscape photography at all. The same way for me. I am trained in both. I love both because even for humans, I look at, say, you, Pat, and it's like you're a piece of art. You're a walking piece of art. And that's what the ability being a portrait artist is, get to photograph someone and bring out their beauty and their soul. And it's gorgeous. And it's the same with landscape. I'm out photographing a beautiful mountain scene or desert scene. I want to capture the soul of the landscape.
So basically, Brittany Colt, you're a beast. And if somebody wanted to describe, she has a hunger to get at the truth of someone, the spirit of someone, or of some place, and to convey that. And when I say beast, meaning you're fearless, like you go after it, because your work certainly comes through with that passion and poignancy. Really stunning. Well, Brittany, thank you for sharing your story, your vision, and the way you help people see themselves, sometimes for the first time and in the wild. What you're doing is so bold and beautiful and so needed right now. Just thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Pat.
Oh, gosh. I just love hearing your creative process and what you're doing. And I'll make sure to put your website in the show notes so folks can find you. Thank you again. And listeners, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please tell your friends and hit subscribe. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.